Okay, in this section, there are some forms of arguments that appear so frequently that they become recognizable as valid or potentially an invalid argument. You can always make truth tables for any argument. But again, if you start to study logic in any sort of depth or even just in life, and you start to realize people saying things, watch the news, listen to a press conference or something, you'll start to realize that certain things come up a lot. So, excuse me, these on this page, these are all valid arguments. Okay, these all lead to valid arguments. And again, if you can recognize these forms, it saves you from having to make the table. Okay, so the first one is called the law of detachment. Okay, the law of detachment. And that would say if P then Q and P then Q. All right, so as an example, if you have $30,000 in sales, you get a $1,000 bonus. Okay, you had $30,000 in sales, therefore the conclusion is you indeed get that $1,000 bonus. Okay, the next one is called the law of contraposition. Okay, so this one starts with if P then Q and not Q holds, then the conclusion is not P. So you'll start to see that this sort of looks like the contrapositive, not Q, then not P. If not Q, sorry, then not P. It's the same thing. That's where this comes from. So example, if they offer me free delivery, I'll purchase the dining set. I didn't purchase the dining set. Therefore, why not? Well, they didn't offer me free delivery. Okay, that was the condition under which I would purchase the set. They didn't offer the free shipping. Okay. Or free delivery. All right, next one is the law of transitivity. And this one, if you've heard of the transitive property, like of algebra, okay, of arithmetic, that says if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. This is the exact same thing except for logic. If P then Q, and if Q then R, then if P then R. Okay, so if Jack takes chemistry, he'll have 16 hours of class. If Jack has 16 hours of class, he'll work 15 hours a week. So if he takes chemistry, he'll end up working 15 hours a week. For me, that is by far the easiest one for me to recognize. I get that one hands down every time. Some of these others I have to think a little bit harder. The last one of the common valid forms of argument is called the law of disjunctive syllogism, which is a mouthful, I know. And this one says P or Q. Okay, so I've got they will order pizza or Chinese for dinner. Okay, not P. They didn't order pizza. Therefore, Q. They ordered Chinese. Okay. And again, that one I think makes a lot of sense in terms of, no pun intended, the logic behind it. It's just learning to recognize it as the law of disjunctive syllogism. Okay, so moving on to the top of the next page, I've got some examples here, and we're going to decide if they're valid using the given forms of valid arguments. In other words, do we recognize these arguments as one of the four things on the previous page? And they may not match exactly, okay? They have to match in general form. And that's what we'll talk about as we continue on in this portion, okay? So what we have here is if not P, then Q. We have not Q, and then we get P as the therefore, okay? I want you to compare it to this. If P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P, okay? Notice as I look through these, okay, the not P is a P, okay? not P is a P, not P is a P. So we've got a direct connection there. Okay, everywhere there's a not P in one, it's a P in the other. Okay, that's one clue. And then the Q stays a Q, and the not Q stayed a not Q. So this is the exact same form as something we have seen on the previous page. This is the law of contraposition. Therefore, this argument is valid. Okay, this is a valid argument. So it is okay to replace something, okay, as long as you replace it every time. So when we saw a not P in the original argument, that's like the P in the law itself. Therefore, when you saw a P in the original law, we should have a not P. Okay, so they either need to line up perfectly or they all need to be opposites of each other as you start looking for the different forms of validity. All right, moving down to question B, we have an if P then Q. So if you go back and look at the previous page, we're already looking at potentially one of the first three laws, either detachment, contraposition, or transitivity. Then we have an if not Q, then not R. Now, the only thing we have that even resembles an if then on the second step there is the law of transitivity, but that doesn't work with a not Q. Okay, if you notice in the law, these two things have to be an exact match. We can't have a Q and a not Q. Okay, so this is going to be invalid. This is not a valid form of an argument. Okay, this would not work out to be true. All right, moving on to part C. One of the things, again, just that I notice right away is we have an or here in the first part. If this is going to work, this is going to have to be the law of disjunctive syllogism. We don't have any other choices here, okay? Because again, looking at your arguments, all of the others have an if-then statement, and this is the only one that has an R. So this would be P or Q, not Q, therefore P. Now this one is still true. So this would be like they'll order pizza or Chinese for dinner, but this one says they didn't order Chinese, therefore they ordered pizza. Okay, so this is, this is the law of disjunctive syllogism. Also a perfectly valid argument. Okay, and then last but not least, we have not P, if not P, then not Q. Then we have a not Q, all right, and then therefore not P. So again, this looks most to me, because of the not Q, this looks the most to me like either contraposition or possibly the law of detachment. Okay, the law of detachment, just to write it down, says if P then Q, P therefore Q. Okay, well notice that we have an issue here, right here, Q and P. We don't have a Q and a P, we have a not Q and a not Q. Okay, so this is not going to be the law of detachment. That's not going to work. Okay, the other thing we can look at is possibly the law of contraposition. And that says if P then Q, not Q, leads us to the conclusion not P. Well, again, whenever I look, those two things have to be opposites according to the law. Okay, that's the one we're looking at here. This is the law. All right, then when we look at the problem itself, these are the same. They are not negations of each other. And so this is not the law of contraposition either. So this is another argument that is invalid. Okay, now two other quick things before we wrap up this video. Now, there are also some arguments that people try to pull off all the time, and they're wrong. Okay, so these are invalid arguments. Okay, that's why they're called fallacies. They're not laws, they're fallacies. fakes. Okay, they're fakes. So these are invalid arguments. One is the fallacy of the converse. People try to do this all the time. If it's Saturday, Laura will go to the mall. Okay, she's at the mall. Therefore, it's Saturday. No, she could be at the mall on Tuesday. All right, just because she's at the mall doesn't mean it's a Saturday. Okay, if she has her umbrella, it's raining. All right, and then you say it's raining. That doesn't necessarily mean she has her umbrella. She might not have had her umbrella with her. She might have forgotten it. Okay, so again, that one happens a ton. People try to pull that one off all the time. The other one is fallacy of the inverse. So this would be an if P then Q, and the if part is not true. Okay, it doesn't happen. And then we conclude not Q. So if she buys a new dress, then she'll buy new shoes. She didn't buy a new dress. Therefore, if she didn't buy new shoes, not necessarily. Again, she can buy new shoes anytime. It's not reliant upon her buying a dress. It's just if she bought a dress, she was maybe going to get some shoes to go with her dress. Well, she didn't get the dress, but maybe she found some shoes she liked anyway. Ladies, you all can appreciate that, right? Okay. So those are things, again, that are fallacies. Those are not true. So keep that in mind as you go through, okay? These make invalid arguments, not valid arguments. On the pages to come, we will be looking at some different arguments and deciding whether they are valid or invalid using one of the four laws and two fallacies for valid arguments.